Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. We revert to politics, and my guest this morning is Fred Nzeako. Barrister Fred Nzeako is a development economist as well as being a legal practitioner. Thanks as always, Fred, for coming on.
Thank you.
You know,
Good to be with you.
Thank you very much. And we also, have with us, at least she's joining us remotely, Cynthia Mbamalu. She is Director of Programs at IAGA Africa. IAGA Africa was launched as a students' organization back in 2007 at the University of George. It's a leading civil society organization promoting participatory democracy. So a fine morning to you, Cynthia. If there's any of that you feel a need to correct, really go ahead. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
So, we're all good, right?
you.
We're all good with the introduction. Thank you very much for making it onto our program. Okay, let me start in studio with Fred Nzeako. And the situation is that this is hardly the time that we expect to be hearing of major cock-ups. But the Independent National Electoral Commission seems to have felt a need to speak up. That, look, with 600 ongoing court cases, our operations, our preparations simply are being hampered because INEC will obey. It has reinstated that it will always obey any court order. But 600 of them, and I was reading that one party alone submitted quite a number of proposals for consideration, even at this late date. Well, first of all, give me your impression on that as a lawyer. The rule of law and all of that.
It's worrisome. The impression is that it's worrisome. The number is so huge that when we talk about these 600 cases, one may want to ask whether the issues arising from 2019 election, whether the issues were still being dragged in the court. And I guess if anyone that is still being dragged, then such a one would have been getting to extinction by a fluxion of time. So most of these cases are as a result of issues arising from the party primaries that were conducted this year. And the party primaries, as a matter of fact, that they are necessary precondition before the general election. As a matter of fact, it is the first major step towards general election. And the provision of the law is that the party primaries, for them to be credible, for them to be acceptable, must be, underline the word, shall be monitored by INEC.
That's right.
Now, what has led to this avalanche of court cases that INEC is now crying that is bedeviling its operations and threatening 2023 election? I can tell you that INEC itself is the culprit.
How?
I will tell you why. INEC is the culprit. The law provides that the party primaries should be monitored by INEC. About 3 or so weeks ago, INEC says that the resident electoral commissioners, that statement was made by Chairman Information Committee and Voter Education Committee, Barrister Festus Okoye, that resident electoral commissioners of INEC are not members of INEC. And as a result, that any election monitored by REC or any report of monitoring brought by REC would not carry the weight it's supposed to carry in the court of law because they are not members of INEC. And such statement was further accentuated by the National Commissioner, Mr. Haruna Mohammed, about 2 weeks ago. If INEC distances itself from the authority of the resident electoral commissioners, how can INEC now come today and cry wolf? Secondly, INEC set the standard because the law provides that INEC has the authority, both the Constitution and the Electoral Act, provide that INEC has the authority to set the standard and the procedure for the election. They have all that latitude. INEC now decided that If you participated in presidential election, for example, you should not participate in another presidential election in another political party. INEC also said that if you do not participate physically in an election, you cannot inherit the result of that election. That much has been supported by the courts over time. Let me give you one clear example. Dave Umahi of Ebonyi State ran for presidency and came back, and he's holding senatorial seat. Ticket. Godswill Akpabio wanted to run for presidency. He even ran. And today, he's holding the ticket of the party for Senate. Alhaji Lawal, the Senate president, ran for presidency and has been pushing Machina in Yobe to hold the ticket until Machina went to several courts, and at the end of the day, Lawal lost out and decided to go home. If he didn't decide to go home, he will still have been in Supreme Court, possibly, pushing for a ticket that obviously should not belong to him. Now, why would INEC put a goalpost and shift that goalpost at the middle of the game? That is where INEC, these are just few notable examples. There are so many other examples across Nigeria that INEC has not put its feet on ground as expected, and they are now causing a lot of challenges in the court of law for INEC. So INEC is the major culprit. Yes, the politicians themselves are complicit in that, because an average politician would want things to go his own way, but that is why we have the laws and the authorities. The electoral management body should not be playing to the whims and caprices of politicians, no matter how highly placed any politician can be.
Okay.
Now they are having 600 court cases in court, and of course, for every case, INEC is a party to it. And once you are a party to any case, you must respect the court and then be part of that case. Otherwise, whatever judgment that is given, whether you are there or not, provided you are joined, the judgment will be binding on you. So INEC should not cause the problem in the morning and come in the afternoon to attack shouting wolf.
Okay, let me bring it to Cynthia. Give me your perspective on, INEC decrying it, being, well, it didn't actually say overwhelmed, but certainly it is bothersome, worrisome. It has said as much. That is to say, the chairman of INEC said that at a capacity building workshop on Monday. Give me your take on the situation.
Thank you. And it's been interesting listening to the conversation so far. And perhaps I'll begin with the outcry from the Electoral Commission. I think as an institution, they have a right to raise an issue when there is something absolutely wrong. 600 pre-election matters, that's a huge number. And honestly, I do not believe that the burden or the blame lies with the Electoral Commission, but rather with the political parties. Because the reason we have a lot of pre-election cases is because parties have learned over a long period of time to ignore what the law says or what the legal framework provides for and act as they wish. And I do not believe that we should keep parties, we should let parties act as they will. Now, what does the legal framework provide for elections? And why do we have some of these cases in court? Like I said, one is just political rascality on the part of political parties who have failed to stick by the law. Because honestly, if, for instance, by the law, you're supposed to give INEC 21 days notice by the new Electoral Act, 21 days notice of your convention, and without giving 21 days notice of your convention, actually your party primaries is invalid. The law is clear on that. The issue around nomination, the process of candidate nomination is clear. Direct, indirect, or consensus, and there are requirements for each. And there's a requirement that parties send their party register at least 30 days before the conduct of primaries to the membership register to the Electoral Commission. Now, where are we having some of these issues? First, questions around were valid primaries even conducted? Because there's a requirement that notice of elections of congresses or party primaries would also come with the details where it's happening. So you can't just change the venue or the location last minute without clear notification to the Electoral Commission or even to candidates, to other aspirants rather. That's one. The other part is we've had a situation where political parties fix the rules, fix high cost of nomination. Now, individuals go to contest elections, they are aggrieved by the outcome, and they decide to move to another party, one, to secure a ticket. That is one arm of the conversation. The other part is individuals seek to contest for a higher position, then they lose, and then they want to go and contest in a lower position. That is the second one. The third part is parties intentionally manipulate or manufacture figures. For those doing direct primaries, figures of party members. For those doing indirect, we have parties where the delegates list is incoherent. There are cases where delegate elections were held at state level and different names were forwarded. So it's quite worrisome when we refuse to actually hold political parties accountable. And honestly, if our democracy would develop and grow, our political leaders and political party leadership they need to come back to their senses and look at the law. I'm tired of making excuses for political parties. I'm tired of making excuses for politicians because they have failed to realize the important role they have in building our democracy. Our law is clear. We have a new Electoral Act that provides specific clarities on rules of engagement when it comes to party primaries, when it comes to how primaries will be conducted. However, we still have individuals who believe that they need to go back to court to get victory through the court, because there's also that belief that perhaps they could manipulate the court processes or the system or the process at the judiciary, which is quite worrisome. So if we think about that, the question should be, why are we having these high numbers of pre-election cases? I understand why they would join INEC, because INEC is the umpire and INEC has the power to monitor political parties' engagement. However, if things are conducted accurately and done in line with the law, if political parties from day one are clear on their rules, conduct democratic and transparent primaries, we will not have issues where people go and contest for one office and lose and go for the next, or where people are trying to force themselves as the candidates of the parties. We will not have issues where individuals feel aggrieved within parties and are running to other parties. Currently, none of the APC and the PDP are dealing with intra-party conflicts in different states. So would we also blame the Electoral Commission for that? I believe that INEC has an important role to give us credible and transparent elections. And I believe that as Nigerians, as citizens, we have that responsibility to support INEC to do the right thing, to get the work done. But call INEC out when INEC has really defaulted. So my own goal is we hold INEC to account to deliver credible and transparent elections. But when the parties are at fault, let us please call a spade and place blame where it ought to be. And it begins with the parties who have refused to be democratic and transparent, and yet they claim they are operating in the democratic system. Honestly, the parties are to be held accountable.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Cynthia. And this is quite exciting because it's like we're having any coin. You have a head, you have a tail.
Yes.
You placed it squarely on, INEC,
a larger percentage.
A larger percentage of the situation.
I said that.
But she said that, in fact, one expression, one sentence in there was that she's tired of making excuses for political parties and the leadership. Now, the chairman of INEC, speaking on Monday, he gave the example, I'm quoting directly from that report, that only 2 weeks ago, one political party served 70 court processes on the commission in one day, seeking to compel us, that is INEC, to accept the nomination or substitution of its candidate long after the deadline provided in the timetable and schedule of activities for the 2023 general election. So you begin to wonder why...
The chairman should not play to the gallery. Serving court process is not the same thing as serving certified true copy of judgment. Court process can be served. If they like, let us serve 1,000 court processes in one day. That shouldn't worry INEC. That shouldn't be an excuse why our 2023 election will be in jeopardy or will be under any threat.
But
under any threat.
Isn't it distracting?
It is not distracting in any way. INEC has a legal department. They have a legal department. What are the lawyers doing in INEC? So it can be distracting. The lawyers in INEC will know that court process is not the same thing as court judgment. Court process is just we are going to court on this matter. Does it tie the hands of INEC? It does not. The one that will tie INEC's hand is judgment.
Yes, but
so it doesn't even tie his hand. Look,
for us
parties
non-lawyers.
Let us make it clear.
Okay.
And very simple for everybody to understand.
Okay.
Parties go for election. The image and name of the individuals don't appear on the ballot paper. So how does it affect INEC? What affects INEC? We have 18 registered political parties going for this election. All right? They are known. Their logos, their names, their images, everything about them, and it is known. Whoever that emerges is the one that INEC will recognize. If you emerge through a transparent primary, INEC will recognize you. Mm-hmm. If you emerge through the court, INEC will recognize you having obeyed the court order. If High Court gives an order today and Appeal Court gives another one, INEC will follow that of Appeal Court. Supreme Court gives the higher one, INEC will follow. So where does it affect INEC? And it doesn't mean that INEC must... Look, I'll tell you.
But you see, I need to get
joining
this clear.
INEC does not mean that INEC lawyers must be in court. INEC...
I mean, you make it sound as if whatever you people like doing, joining us, INEC can simply ignore it.
No, INEC will not ignore it.
Exactly.
But INEC will take judicial notice of it. It doesn't mean that INEC will be run up and down in court.
What is judicial
INEC
notice?
is not...
What is
judicial notice of understanding and accepting and agreeing that this matter is in court.
And maybe preparing for it as well.
What are you preparing? You are not the litigant. You only take, if you like, you observe the proceedings. If you like, you don't observe it. At the end of the day, the judgment will come. It's only the judgment that will concern INEC and not the processes in court.
So when this
If you and I, let's give an example. You and I went for primaries in the same political party. I felt robbed. You have the ticket, and I take my party and join INEC. The essence of joining INEC is that whenever the judgment is given, INEC will be compelled to obey that judgment. It does not mean that INEC will come and defend you, because that primary was not conducted by INEC. The one that INEC must defend is the election that they conducted.
Okay.
Now, we're talking about pre-election matter conducted by political parties, by the members. Joining INEC is only to make sure that whenever judgment is given, INEC will be compelled to obey that judgment. Because if you don't join INEC, it does not concern INEC. It's a technicality in law and in the court process. That does not mean that for every matter in court, between one party member and another, INEC will be in court. It doesn't follow.
Okay, I hear what you're saying there. I hear what
you're
saying
there.
So the 600... But I hear what you're saying there. But if, for instance, this whole matter about, and I'll go back to Cynthia, but this matter about the politicians themselves conducting themselves in an expected manner. When INEC complains or observes that, look, how can you come way past the expiry date for the substitution or change of candidates and still be making those, official requests? How can you be coming like
politicians that? are not priests. They are politicians.
But there are rules.
That is what I'm saying, that INEC must concern itself with the rules. The worrisome part of it is where INEC itself changes the rules. That is where it should worry INEC.
But INEC hasn't done that.
If INEC has not done that, why would INEC recognize somebody who did not contest a primary election? Why? That's changing the goalpost. So, if INEC does not do so, then INEC should not be worried. Why would INEC come out and give an administrative order that the Resident Electoral Commissioner is not a member of INEC, and as such, any report brought of monitoring of an election brought by that Resident Electoral Commissioner should be discountenanced and will not carry enough weight? These are strong technical rules.
So you therefore
Today, news broke out by way of trying to cover the ground and letting you know why I will always ask INEC to stand firm. News broke out about 3-4 days ago that INEC is planning, or rather some political parties are compelling INEC not to allow Nigerians view the result portal, INEC result viewing portal, real-time online from the polling unit. It has been disturbing and worrying Nigerians. Up to today, no top executive of INEC has come to make a categorical statement on that. And when you allow such gray information to nurture in the gray information arena, people will begin to read meanings, conspiracy theories will begin to arise. By now, we expected that Mr. Festus Okoye would have given a press statement on that. The chairman of INEC would have made a categorical statement on that to assuage the feelings of Nigerians. It is not only in pre-election matter that the issues may arise. The bulk of the issues that really concern INEC directly arise from election matters. If we people cannot view real-time online election results posted from the various polling units based on what is on Form EC8A, then you would have messed up the system.
But isn't this at the moment still speculative?
But allow people to...
It's still speculative because as you yourself have said...
When you say speculative, there will be speculations all over, continuously until election.
All right.
There will be speculations. So whenever there is a speculation, it is the duty of INEC as the electoral management body to issue a very strong statement. What does it take them to issue the statement? It doesn't take them anything.
And in the absence of that, you're holding INEC responsible, at least in part.
Absolutely responsible. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
Responsible on this very matter of the IRF.
Okay.
But on the matter of the issue of court cases, I hold both political parties responsible. I hold the politicians responsible, and I hold INEC responsible for not standing firm.
Okay. Well,
based on what the laws have provided.
Well, Cynthia, so coming back to you, as you heard, Fred is saying that, yeah, to some extent, but it's not all. Those are not that's not the extent of the culprits. He said that there's no way you can take INEC out of it. How would you respond to all the points that you raised?
I do understand the sentiments, and just listening to him and reflecting to the several points that has been highlighted. And we as Young Africa, we engage with not just INEC, with political parties, and most times we get the sentiments. But I think what is also important is the role of responsibility of respective institutions involved in the electoral process. I'm looking at political parties as an important institution and a major stakeholder. I'm also looking at INEC as the major elections management body. And like I said earlier, and I still stand on what I said. I do believe that there's a lot of irresponsibility amongst our political class and leaders, and they are forgetting that whatever they sow today is what determines the future of our democracy. And most times they've learned to breach the laws and look for sentiments, or rather play around sentiment to try to get INEC to act. As simple as the demand for INEC to extend timelines for conduct of primaries. You could imagine as when it started, there was a clear guideline and clear timetable for elections, but we still had parties making demands that the time be extended and making arguments for that. So there's that arm of the conversation. Now, I believe in understanding what the law says and using the law to assess the process. So I wouldn't speak much around the IREV because we haven't gone into the next general elections. But if there's one thing that we believe we ought to do now, is to make demands on the Electoral Commission, INEC, to ensure that there is clarity on procedure and processes, there is strict compliance to the law, and there is uniformity of practice. In addition, that we have a clear framework that guides and regulates or provides for clear principles for deployment of technology for both accreditation and results transmission, where the IREV also comes in place. Because what we're hoping to see for the next elections is full compliance. We've seen INEC function in Ekiti and Osun, and we saw a marked improvement because the FCT elections, they were major issues with technology, and Young Africa and other partners called out on INEC, and there were several meetings post that to ensure better functionality and deployment in Ekiti and Osun. So where they've been marked improvement, we've noted that, but it doesn't mean we're getting to the election with high optimism. It's still cautious optimism because we believe that we need to continually make the demands until the elections are conducted. We cannot speak to the outcome or to the process. So that is one arm of it. Demands are clear. I've highlighted what we've made our demands when it comes to deployment of technology and even generally elections administration. That is one arm of the conversation. When we talk about political parties, like I said,
I beg your pardon. Before you continue, what do you make of Fred's submission that, look, being joined, if 600 cases, it might be 6,000. It doesn't matter because he doesn't see the potential for distraction in there. It's like INEC just being put on notice. Meanwhile, the chairman, when he was speaking on Monday, had said that some of these issues are even going to go to the Supreme Court. What would be your take in relation to, it seems like they're two different...
I do see it is huge distraction. Now, being joined in a case means you'd be called to answer or to either support or to defend whatever it is or argue against. So being joined in a case, INEC is an institution created by law, constitution in particular. Now, INEC cannot flout others. Same also as serving processes. Now, you can be served as an individual if you're served court processes. It could be at a process asking you to appear to respond to a case in court or to appear to defend yourself. Now, there is an intention. If you are not a party to a case, you don't just serve random people processes. And random serving processes does not mean, yes, I have. It's not an FI, it's not a for your information, FYI. The conversation around judicial notice, it's a bit more, it's broader than that. And I do not think as an institution created by law that INEC should ignore court processes. If it's a court process demanded that INEC comes to answer to a case in court, INEC ought to go to court to answer to that case. If it doesn't, it will be seen as contempt of the court. So INEC actually would be required, if it served a process, to come to court because you're serving INEC a process because you want INEC to answer to a case, meaning that it is a distraction, yes. Being joined is that you are now a party. You are now a party to the case. If INEC, as an institution created by law, decides to ignore those cases, we would all call out INEC for abusing the rules, for acting ultra-vires or even disregarding the rule of law. We will all call INEC out if INEC refuses to show up cases that it's been joined to and it has been called to answer to. So if we think about it, if INEC is clearly stating that they've been joined in 600 cases, it also means that INEC is required. There is there's a responsibility on INEC to answer, to show up, because it means you're joined. It means you are important to that case. That is why you've been joined. If you've been served processes, I do not think the processes that were served. If it's a simple process of there's a court order and we want you to obey the court judgment, that's a different situation. And I know several times you've had a list of candidates, for instance. Names of candidates have been changed at different points in time because there's a new court judgment deciding with a decision that another person is a rightful candidate of the party, and INEC had to obey that court judgment and review the names. Sometimes you've had court judgment that has said, was it Ondo election in 2016 Ondo election or 2017? I can't remember. Where until the eve of the elections, one of the parties had a court judgment changing who the candidate of the party was, and INEC had to obey that. So there are several levels of processes. If it's a process demanding INEC to come and answer to a case, INEC cannot say, "I'm busy, I won't answer to it." INEC needs to answer, exactly. Which is why this has been raised, because it is a lot of distraction. But if parties do the right things, then we will not have this number of pre-election cases. Why should we have as many as 600 pre-election cases in a pre-election season when parties should have been held to account? Please, let us also look at politicians from other climes. We're talking about responsibility. The law is clear on campaign finance, for instance. How many parties are declaring how much they are spending? How many parties are giving accounts to the Electoral Commission? Recently, where I was just reviewing the campaigns in the US elections, you go to the FEC website, you can see who donated to which party. Republicans Democrats, as low as $100, you know who is donating it. They are declaring, even though they are spending a lot, you can tell where the money is coming from. You can see an accountability. Nobody is forcing them. No one is running after them. These are politicians too who are making that declaration. When it comes to Nigeria, why do you want to make excuses for bad behavior?
All right, then. I beg your pardon, Cynthia. I beg your pardon. I'm so sorry to interrupt you because I was really, enjoying this.